Welcome to Imperfect Helping Hands, the podcast where we embrace our imperfections, lift each other up, and inspire one another on this shared journey of growth.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Imperfect Helping Hands podcast. I am with Seth Rubin, my co-host, and today I'm going to interview Jon Emery. I met Jon Emery. Well, it was interesting. You know how we connect through social media and we're like, who's this person, And then we just gain great connection. Jon messaged me on LinkedIn, I believe, and I guess he saw mutual connection with someone else and he liked my content and thought to interview me for his podcast. So before I say a little bit more about Jon, I would like to have you introduce yourself and see more about you.
Sure. So my name's Jon Emery. I have a full-time job, but after that, I focus on podcasting. So we can dive into how I got into that if you like. But it's where people come on and share their journey in life and how they went through things. And that's what I look forward to. Open, honest, authentic, vulnerable people coming on. And so I have a procedure I follow, and I've been doing that for about 2.5 years. So it'll be 3 years in November.
Oh, wow.
And your first event that I was able to attend was the first one I was able to speak at. And then I had my first live event I held the weekend thereafter.
Wow. All these opportunities, just the connections and how big it can both help each other. And so what's your podcast name? What's the name of your podcast?
Life's Checkmark.
Life's Checkmark. Yes. Okay, nice. I did remember you interviewed me and it seemed like it spiked. A lot of people liked the message that I was speaking about, being imperfect and through my imperfect moments and everything. Can you explain a little bit more about why you do your podcasts and what makes you want to just focus on that?
Yeah, so for me, it was me navigating through a job loss after 20 years. And then I wound up going through a divorce in the same year. It was mentioned to me. Nothing I ever wanted, but it came up. And so I wound up going to a live event about 1.5 years thereafter. Something I never would have done if I was still married and had kids. I would have, I hardly ever left the kids as much as possible, right? So I'm like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I'll buy this ticket for the next year and I'll go. It's another podcaster that's local to us, not far. And he's been doing it for about 9 years now, podcasting. So the event he held wasn't on podcast. It was just growth, right? All these speakers and stuff. And so there I was for 2 days. Went down for breakfast and he was there. He's like, yeah, come sit at the table. So I did. All the most of the speakers were there. And everybody got up but this one guy. And I say this all the time because I don't remember his name. He probably doesn't even remember me. He's like, what do you want to do? And I said, start a podcast. And I have no idea really why I said it. So he said, well, do you have anything? I'm like, well, I have these 10 Facebook Lives I had, prior to the word divorce, because I was diving into life insurance at the time. So I was learning about entrepreneurs. And he's like, oh, just take the audio, strip that, and start your podcast with that. I'm like, well, it's nothing I want my podcast to be about. I didn't want to interview just entrepreneurs. Funny enough, most people are, because they go through things and they create their own business. But 6 months later, I did that. So I hesitated, right? And I don't know why, I just, for whatever reason, I was meant to be 6 months later. That got me started. I was able to, and I recommend this to everybody I talk to, I was able to post 3 episodes first and then 1 thereafter per week. So I had 10 already banked, right? Which allowed me to go ahead and find friends, family members, whoever I thought was a good fit for my podcast to start lining them up. And so now it's just been like a spider web of networking and stuff, and where people, I'll talk to them like this for 20 minutes, virtually mostly, and just make sure they're a good fit first, good energy, good person. And then I would schedule a podcast episode. But this is what I enjoy doing. People, you say the word podcast, everybody's like, hey, I'm in.
It's becoming a huge thing.
That's
why I was like, why not create something here? We all have stories. We also have something to motivate each other. So that's why I think it would be awesome to, create this. It's great. I got inspired by you. You were my first big podcast that I got an interview from. And I was just like, this is cool. get to express yourself and everything. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. It is fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
I really do love that. And when you do a podcast, what kind of people are you looking for exactly?
Yeah, so I guess it's the people that are open, honest, vulnerable, authentic, right?
That's right.
And I just want to have an open conversation, just like we're having now, and just see where it takes us, right? So I kind of go, who are you today? And then how did you get there, right? And let's go back in time and figure out how did you get there. Now, sometimes we get stuck in one area, but that's just how the conversation takes us. Sometimes the people are focusing on their entrepreneur journey. They're focusing on, the abuse they dealt with, the bankruptcy, a whole bunch of different, stuff. There's stuff I'm sure I haven't even heard yet that I still have to come across.
With your podcast, what kind of people do you invite in your podcast to like interview?
Yeah, so I'm looking for people that are open, honest, vulnerable, and authentic. And I basically just talk to them for about 20 minutes prior to scheduling the episode, right? So that way I get to make sure that we're a good fit and we have a good energy going back and forth. Because sometimes you might find those people that are like, you have to like pry a little bit. And, I will say that I start off with them coming on, and then I would say, who are you today? What are you most excited about? And it kind of like opens up things a little bit. And then go back in time. Like, how did you get to where you're at today? Because you obviously didn't say, hey, this is who I'm going to be for the rest of my life, right away. And that's how it happens, right? And just see where the conversation goes. And we might get into like a rabbit hole of, whatever they just experienced in one area. Or we might just, jump around back and forth. And I'm just looking for the authentic part of like, just share what you went through so somebody else can hear it and they can get through whatever you went through as well.
Yes, getting your voice heard and just speaking up, because then that helps the person just let that go. Also, that gets the listener to listen and to know that they're not alone in their situation. So that is an incredible thing. And you have mentioned so many situations you've been through, and I'm sure the Seth would relate to you because he also went through divorces. And I don't know, Seth, did you want to ask anything about that?
I think like going through divorce and going through the challenges that come after divorce definitely help you see a little bit differently. And I think that has helped me not only discover who I am, but helped me become a better person. And I think it's helped me also try to help those around me and given me almost like a internal recipe for what I want to do with my life. And I love to help people. That's what my mission is. My mission is to help people. And I find that helping people is very rewarding. And I find some of the things that you've done and spoken about and some of the missions that you're on through your podcast, through writing in this book that we'll talk about in a minute is like very similar to what I'm doing. So when you went through your divorce, how did you, and how I overcame it, but like what challenges did you go through and how did you overcome?
Yeah, there's a lot. So again, this is nothing I ever wanted. I would tell you my dad's side of the family were all pretty much divorced growing up as a child. And then I came around like 19, 20 years old when I was, I became that age and found out that my parents were divorced probably when I was 7 or 8. I don't really know, but they lived together. I had no idea. My sister had no idea, but everybody else around us knew, right? So there's another thing like, okay, now I really don't want it to happen, right? So it would have been 15 years that we were married. We have 2 kids. And so I lost my job in 2020 and then, so that was like May. And then January of within that same year, things were a little shaky at home and I wasn't really, I didn't see it, right? It was not in me. My vows were vows. And so, rich or poor, sickness and health and all that stuff, right? So I couldn't figure things out. I don't know about you, but I didn't really have the men or anybody around me as a friend that I could actually turn to because I always kept my relationship with us, right? And everybody, and that's just how it was. I listened to a podcast, funny enough, in that January of that year, and it's called Dad's Edge. It's still out there. I think it's 10 years in now. And for whatever reason, I was like, okay, I'm going to join this group. And they had Zoom calls and all this stuff going on, right? And I had no idea what was going to happen. So I really didn't jump on those calls for the simple fact I wanted to be with my kids as much as I could, right? I wound up connecting with about 4 to 5 good men where it was mostly like a lifeline kind of deal. So I was able to call them, message them, whatever it was, we could connect with each other. And if one didn't pick up, you just try another one, right? So for me, I had a hard time trying to figure things out. And every little thing, it was eating away at me. What's going on? You couldn't talk to the person doing it because they weren't going to tell you, what's really happening, right? At least not for me. It wasn't working that way. And so without them, I don't know where I would really be today, to be honest with you. It was nothing I really was really looking for as like assistance and help and a tribe, as you would call it, but it worked out. So I had one guy, he was from Canada, and he's like, you're going to a divorce, right? And this is like 2 months before she even said the word. I'm like,
What? How would he know?
well, he didn't get divorced, I think, till 2 years later after me, but he wound up going through all this, trying to make things work on his end with
Right.
his relationship.
Yeah.
And then he just saw the patterns with everybody he's been talking to and the coaching and stuff he's been getting. And so that's what he was telling me. He's like, it just seems like everything you're telling me is leading to this. I said, okay. So that kind of prepared me in a way, even though I didn't want to hear it. Then there's another great guy, I consider him a coach, and he did this masculinity course, right? And I'm like, what is this, right? Do you know it now, right? Masculine, feminine energy. I'm like, what the, right? Before I go into that real quick, he was very kind enough to respond to my messages on Messenger as much as quickly as possible. And he would also say, just breathe, don't dwell on the little things. You're making things stack up in a sense, right? So I took this course. It was about April, beginning of May. It was 4 weeks, one per week that we would meet. It was me, him, and another guy that was still married, trying to work on things, I guess. The first 2 times I was sobbing. I had no idea what was going on. I was trying the date night thing at home, and that didn't work, right? Somebody already checked out. And so the 2 weeks, the last 2 weeks, he's like, you sound better. I held myself. Like I felt more composed of just dealing with things. And, I don't really know everything that he shared with us. I don't remember it all, but I do remember the communication part, like we're logic. You guys women are more into feelings, emotions, and all this stuff. Right. And like that stuff, like I never looked at that way. Right. And now it all makes sense. And, the communication barrier, we should be mirroring ourselves, asking, okay, so what you're telling me is this? And they'll be like, no, what I'm telling you is that, go back and forth for a little bit until you get on the same page. The one thing I like to bring up too is that an example would be like, hey, the wife or whatever would be like, hey, when we're done dinner, can you clean up and put the food away? And, as a guy, we're like, we got the pots and pans and just throw them in the refrigerator. Right? Like, why am I going to take it out, put it in Tupperware, dirty another dish, right? I mean, that's just how we think.
You're very simple in the mind. And that's what I had to learn in my relationship is like, we gotta talk to each other where we both can understand each other.
Yeah.
It takes a while.
It does.
I get frustrated and I'm like, you're not understanding me. I feel like I'm not being understood and all this stuff. And it's just a process, and it's both ways. It's all about the patience and understanding each other and trying to like know what kind of conversation to have with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's tough. It is tough as
It
a
is.
woman and as a man. And we're not taught. Like
No.
growing up, we weren't taught of like, when you're in a relationship, this is gonna happen. Your woman's gonna feel like this, or your man's gonna feel like this. Like this is why there's so much struggle in relationships. I don't feel like they're really taught and how to communicate and how to be with someone and love someone and appreciate them. Everything is just it's a hot mess. And honestly, like, thank you for talking about that because it's happening a lot, unfortunately. And I think we need more awareness, especially for men who are struggling with it and who have overcome it and all that stuff.
I found that I'm more like knowledgeable now after my divorce
Yes.
than I was during my marriage.
Yes.
And I'm like, I could have done this and it probably would have helped tremendously. But after my divorce, I sat there and I took a step back. I'm like, where did things go wrong?
Yeah.
I'm like, how could I have corrected this? And now I feel like I'm even better of like I could have been a better partner if I knew what I know now back then.
True. But it takes two,
Yes.
right?
It
So
does.
if I was to say, hey, let's work on this, and the other one says no, then you can't make it work, right? And that's basically where I was in a sense. Yeah. But I also did learn too that 10 men commit suicide every day from divorce, whether it's that time or sometime after, right? And things just ripples, right? It's not over when you sign papers and stuff. Things are still there. But I never knew that. Like, who would have thought, right? It could have happened. And unfortunately, there are people that commit suicide from this.
I think one of the biggest blind signs that happened to me
Yeah.
was she invited me to one of her her appointments with a counselor.
Okay.
And both her and the counselor blindsided me and started talking about all the things that I was doing wrong. And that was like the biggest blindside that you could ever face. And it's just like you're like caught completely off guard.
Yep. It was a little similar on my end too, but it was counseling after the fact that we were going through divorce. It didn't make sense to me.
What?
Just to communicate, but whatever. I gave that up too because I felt like I was being pounded on from two women.
Exactly.
Right. And no offense to that, but it just felt like that. And I'm like, we're already done. Like, what are we doing? So yeah, it's definitely life-changing, and I agree with you. I feel so much better as a person going through it, unfortunately and fortunately. But I get to carry this over to people, hopefully, that they don't go through it. And share with my kids. I was just talking to my son yesterday about, feminine and masculine and the emotions and stuff, because, he has conflicting problems with his sister sometimes. I'm like, this is how I think we think. He's like, yeah, you're right. You know what I mean? So it's like stuff like that. Like, if I didn't know, like, I'm like, and I told him, I'm like, you're learning now what I just know now, which I wish I knew back then. And now we have all this information, and it's just, you have to hand it into the people that are younger so they can learn. Yeah.
And I wish I could take the Seth from today and insert into that relationship back then, because I feel like it could have possibly survived a little
Right.
better.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But you had to go through it for a reason, right? And now you are who you are today. That's what's important.
Yeah, and then helping our youth too, like the little ones you were talking about. Like, it's amazing that you as a parent, you went through this, you learned from this, and now you're taking that knowledge and you're giving it to your kids so they don't have to go through what you went through.
Yeah, I can only hope, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't know how much information they can take. You can only give them as much, and then sometimes I think that, like, are they really, really grasping what I'm saying, or are they just like one ear after them another, But yeah, I'm so sorry of what you both been through, but I'm very proud of both of you for overcoming this huge challenge because it's heartbreaking, and I'm really happy to hear that you've grown and got something good out of it. And it's so good to hear. So now that we finished talking about divorce, let's talk about something good, like this book, Surrender to Rise. Can you talk a little about this book and, see what we can learn from this?
Sure. Can I share with you how it became to be?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, last year, I attended an event in Tennessee. It was maybe 100 some people. there was this woman up there, her name's Elena. She's the one that published it and everything. And she spoke. She shared something about her journey that made me, it resonated with me. So I wrote it down. I forget what it was I wrote down, but I was able to approach her, and we just spoke for a couple minutes. Never really got to connect thereafter because it was so busy. She wound up calling me June or July last year and said, "Hey, do you want to speak at my event in Texas?" Which would have been September last year. It got pushed back till this year now. But so that came up. She's like, "I think you have something great to share." And the connection we had seemed to work, just those few minutes. And then she asked me, "Do you want to be part of this book?" I said, "Sure." I said, "What's it about?" She said, "It's about your spiritual journey." Right. And I said, "Okay, well, for me, it happened about 2 years ago. For whatever reason, I was saying thank you in the morning for being alive. And then thank you, God, just came out of my mouth. And so I asked a close friend of mine that, "Hey, what is this?" He's like, "I think you're just curious. Why don't you just come to church or, grab a Bible and just check it out?" And I said, "Okay." So I did. And here I am about 2.5 years or so now, still exploring. I don't know scripture, but I do go to church. I do read, parts of it. Go ahead. Oh, I thought you were going to say it.
No,
Yeah. And so this part is me sharing how I started to take on, learning about God and being more faithful. Because it was something I never really dove into. My family never really said, "Hey, go to church," or anything like that. Right. And so now you go through good times and bad times, and you can just say, "Hey, somebody's with me no matter what I'm going through." Right. And so I shared in there, I think there's 6 or 7 other men in there. And this is just men. She did a women's edition prior to this. And this is just men sharing their spiritual journey. And so
there's different stories in the
yes,
book.
each man that, or king, as she would call it, is sharing their spiritual journey there. Yeah.
Oh, so is it every chapter they have a
Yep, you got your picture. Yep, and then I have QR codes in the back of mine.
Oh, that is amazing. So they have different stories of what these men gone through in like a spiritual way.
Yes.
Right. And your story's in here too, right?
Yes. I think it's like page 120 or something like that. Somewhere it starts around there.
Oh, here it is.
There you go. See?
Navigating your rock bottom for growth. When life is a journey and I cannot predict everything that is going to happen, I will aim in the direction I want to go, and I know somehow or another I will get there. I love that. I love that. This is
Yeah.
this is really
So this is the first book I've ever been in. I do have 2 more coming out, but they're not spiritual. So it's just been this whole going through what I went through, and the podcast and everything has just like opened up so many doors and avenues I never really thought of. Like speaking at your event you held.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I mean,
The Health and Wellness
Yeah,
Expo. You
that
got
was
one
fun.
speaker. Yes. Oh my goodness. And my fiance really enjoyed your story.
Oh, was he there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was there around other people, and he really enjoyed it. So it's really cool that you got all these great opportunities, got to speak, you get to travel. I mean, you're in this book. Amazing that this woman allow all these other men to be part of this too. I believe men need to speak up about their story and be heard, right? Especially with what y'all go through, divorce and everything. It's incredible. And thank you for just being here, especially. So, did you want to say anything?
And you mentioned we were talking about this book in the pre-interview, and you said you're going to be donating some of your proceeds to the to an organization that is a local organization in Quakertown.
Yeah.
Would you like to talk a little bit?
Yeah, I will. So the woman's name is Christy, and I have yet to meet her in person or a Zoom call or anything, but we've been contact different ways. And so I first heard about this last year. I went to a church was holding an event, and a magician came. Apparently the magician was deaf a long time ago. He's got stuff going on now where he's got implants where he can start hearing stuff now, but he started doing magician shows and he was deaf and going to schools, and it was just working in his favor. I was moved by that, but then I was also moved that he was there to just raise money for this. And it's a new wave the Next Wave Ministries. And so she's based out of Quakertown area in Pennsylvania. It's about young women aging out of foster care. So they are of age where
What's the age?
yeah, so it's around 18, right? 17, 18, I guess, is when they're aging out. They don't have a foster home, so they have nowhere to go. So most of them wind up on the streets, or they just go in shelters or whatever. I really don't know the whole ins and outs. I do have some statistics she gave me for Pennsylvania, but she said most states are basically the same. So I'll just read a few of them off, because it's very moving to me of what, and she was a teacher, I think, and she quit and just started doing this because she said God said do this, right? So here it is. So youth ages out of foster care between 18 and 21. This means they don't have county or state support anymore to pay a family to care for them, and they end up with very little support. Due to the lack of support, this is what the statistics are. 20% of young women aging out become instantly homeless. 50% of girls struggle with homelessness until the age of 25. 70% of young women become pregnant before their 21st birthday. About 50% of them, about 50% of these young women, about 50% of these young moms will have to give up their children to foster care, continuing the cycle. 50% struggle with unemployment. Less than 50% will graduate from high school with a GED. And then up to 90% of young women become victims of sex trafficking from getting out of foster care.
My thing is, sorry to cut you off, but my thing is like, how do you expect them to know how to be independent if they didn't have a family to guide them? They didn't have guidance. So what? My question is like, in the foster care, what do they offer for them?
Yeah, I don't know all the ins and outs with foster care,
Right.
but you basically have a family, right, that's supporting you and raising you, and you might be jumping around from different families.
Okay.
And I guess at that age, people don't take in those kids of 17, 18 years old or even older, right? Because they're basically an adult, so they're just on their own, right? So now she's in the process of trying to get a house somewhere in the area.
Okay.
Where she can actually have shelter for some of these young women. It won't be a lot, but it's a start.
Okay.
And I know she's starting to counsel some of them. And, it's just something that I was moved by. And I've thought, well, all the proceeds I'm making on my end, whoever's going to my link to buy it, is just going to go to this. And so I'm hoping to raise $1,000. I'm already at 70, just selling a few books.
Okay.
But I don't think it's not gonna take long to get there, as long as people are just interested. And so you'll get the book to read, right, about these kings, and then it's just gonna go for this cause. And the plan is to have her on my podcast. It just hasn't lined up yet.
I'm sure she's so busy. Like,
Oh yeah, I can't. It's hard to even get a hold of her.
yeah, set everything up. I mean, she's on a mission, and this is so needed. I mean, it's not only the foster care homes; it's also homelessness shelters out there too. It's hard to even go in. There's such a lineup, and then housing costs, living it's everything's just going up. So that's really touchy. I didn't even know about that.
Me neither until I heard
Never-
about that show.
I have worked with foster care kids. I've done a workshop. The Girl Scouts hired me to provide a free coloring book activity where I teach the kids how to accept the imperfect images and how to include that with themselves, and they get to keep the coloring book and the crayons, so they can keep that and color whenever they want. And it was such a special moment. That was like my first time ever being in a foster care home and providing that activity with them. But Girl Scouts, they hired me to do that for one day, and I was like, I didn't know about this Girl Scouts, but they collect all the money they raise from selling the cookies, and then they do different activities. They spend it, and then they wanted to hire me, and I did a leadership activity with them, and then they hired me to do this for the foster care. So it's really, really rewarding.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. So those who are listening, Surrender to Rise, King's Edition by Elena Rodriguez, right?
You got it.
And Jon Emery is in this book, and his story is in here. And donation. So is it the 100% of the?
For me, yes. I mean, obviously, it's cost towards the book, and then
Mhm.
the difference would go.
Oh, so either different. Oh, thank you
Mhm.
for doing this. This is incredible.
Where can people get this book?
Yeah, I'll give you the link, and so, but it's through like a PayPal link that I have.
Okay.
Yeah, you just
Do you have a website?
that's what I mean. I can give you the link so you can go. It's like this whole thing. So but yeah, so just check it out. Wherever you guys put the show. Where
Post the link in the post of this podcast.
Yeah.
I will include it on my social media page and everything, just to help spread the word. And yeah, this has been such a incredible journey that you've given us. Is there anything you want to mention before we end this?
anything I want to mention?
Yes, to inspire whoever is listening.
Yeah, I'll start off with like, don't quit. I know a lot of people just give up on things over time because they just don't feel like it's working out. So have a strong why, or, a purpose, a reason, passion, whatever it is that's moving you towards something, to keep going. Right. And I share that because of the simple fact, because of the podcasting world for me. I always stress the fact of figuring out, why are you doing a podcast? Because 90% don't get past episode 3. Let's keep going, Lisa. Seth, all right? Because they fall off, right? And for the most part, they're looking for money. They're looking for audience, right? Or it's the work.
It takes time.
Or they're launching one episode right now, and then they have to hurry up and scramble for next week, and then they go, oh, well, I didn't make it. Who's going to listen to me now? So again, that's why I mentioned the 10 episodes first. But yeah, like, have that. And that's really what I feel carried me to keep going where I'm going with what I'm doing with the podcast. And now I have Podcasters Hub, which is a community of 35 podcasters at the moment, having special guests coming in every once in a while throughout the month. And then I'm trying to work on an event too. So, that's coming up with podcasting. But that's what so if I quit, then my kids see that I quit, right? And I don't want that, right? Even if it's not like the best time in our lives right now, like it's going to get there. So you have to like navigate through that. And I know Alex Hormozy says it's like the gray area, right? So you're going from these friends to these friends, but you have no friends, right? So you have to just get through that. And yeah, these people are pulling you back. These people are pulling you forward. So you just have to have that. That's what I think. Just don't quit on whatever it is that you're going through and doing.
Yes.
It's a very important message not to quit. As much as you want to, as much as it's hard to get out of bed in the morning, or it's hard to, get to that next place that you need to go to.
Yeah.
Every day you got to get up. You got to keep going. You got to do what you not only don't want to do, but you have to make sure that you're there for everybody else as well. So part of what we do, and part of what Lisa does with Imperfection is Beautiful, is we love to help people. We love to help nonprofits. So we'll definitely be looking into this nonprofit to see what we can do to possibly help this as well.
I might actually buy one. Yeah. I have a good friend who might be very interested in this. This is very inspiring, and it's very unique. So it's very incredible. Well, thank you so much for being part of our Imperfect Helping Hands podcast journey. And I hope that many listeners over here will take a lot of what you're saying and really make a difference and help anybody who may be going through the same situation. So thank you all so much for speaking up and really opening your heart out to the community and doing what you're doing. Keep it up. Honestly, you have inspired me to create this wonderful podcast. I thank Seth for being my co-host, and we'll just keep going. We'll not give up, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
I'll do it.
Yes. Thank you all for listening to Imperfect Helping Hand podcast. We'll see you later.
Thank you for tuning into Imperfect Helping Hands. Remember, it's our imperfection that makes us stronger. Let's continue to support, motivate, and grow together. Be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and join us next month for more topics on how to embrace your imperfections.